Shut your mouth, act it out, cause I don't wanna talk about it. I got hoes, I wanna fucking bands to get, so get about it. At 200 in the Saudi, couple bitches are from Saudi, and I know they talk about me cause I keep them bands around, so hit the
In 2022, Enea Bastianini earned the nickname The Beast, not for aggression alone, but for intelligence. He was the rider who waited, observed, and then attacked when others faded. In 2023, that momentum was broken by injuries and missed opportunities. In 2024, he found himself sidelined again, watching MotoGP evolve without him. And in 2025, the story took its most uncomfortable turn yet. Enea Bastianini didn't lose races, he lost certainty. This season wasn't about wins, and it wasn't even about podiums. It was about identity. A rider who once mastered Ducati's most demanding machine, a bike that punished hesitation and rewarded precision, now found himself struggling to unlock KTM's most aggressive weapon. The results showed poor qualifying, costly mistakes, and flashes of speed that never fully connected. But numbers alone don't tell the story. Because behind the statistics was a rider fighting a deeper battle, adapting to a new philosophy, questioning his instincts, and searching for confidence in an environment that demands immediate results. What we saw on Sundays was only the surface. What happened behind the scenes tells a far more complex story. This is not a highlight reel. This is the real story of Enea Bastianini's 2025 MotoGP season. Now, let's look at his season overall. In 2024, Enea Bastianini was nothing short of phenomenal, finishing fourth in the MotoGP Championship, just behind the man who would replace him at Ducati, Marc Marquez. That same year, Marquez went on to dominate the field, sealing the world title with 5 rounds still remaining, a stark reminder of the level Bastianini himself had been competing at only months earlier. Expectations were high as Enea stepped into a new chapter of his career, but 2025 quickly became a season defined by struggle rather than momentum. After joining the KTM Tech3 team, Bastianini ended the year 10 positions lower than his previous championship standing, a dramatic drop that reflected the chaos of his campaign. Multiple DNFs, costly crashes, and recurring bike malfunctions repeatedly derailed his weekends, turning what was meant to be a fresh start into a catastrophic and frustrating season. Confidence never had the chance to fully return, rhythm never truly settled, and each setback seemed to arrive just as progress appeared within reach. And yet, even in the darkness, there were brief flashes of the rider he once was. A podium finish in a Grand Prix and another in a sprint race. Small moments in the grand scheme of the season, but significant enough to prevent it from ending in complete despair, and powerful enough to remind the paddock that the beast is still there. Even if the numbers no longer fully tell his story. The season began in Thailand with a modest but respectable debut for Enea Bastianini on the KTM, starting 9th and finishing 9th, an average result, but acceptable given it was his first real benchmark on a new machine. Argentina, however, exposed early struggles, as he started 17th and finished exactly where he began, unable to make any impression. In the United States, there were signs of recovery. While still not truly impressive, Bastianini showed improved racecraft to bring the bike home in 7th. That momentum didn't last. Qatar saw him drop out of the top 10 entirely, before Spain offered a small correction with a 9th-place finish, just enough to regain some confidence. France proved frustrating again, missing out on stronger qualifying, finishing just outside the key positions, and ending the race where he started, once more outside the top 10.
Silverstone followed with another disappointing weekend, finishing 17th, reinforcing concerns about consistency. Aragon offered slight improvement with a 12th place result. And in the Netherlands, he finally edged back into the top 10, though without real impact. Austria marked his first major breakthrough of the season, finishing 5th, his best result at that point, sparking hope that the Beast was finally adapting to the KTM. That belief grew stronger in Catalonia, where Bastianini delivered his best performance of the year, with a podium finish in 3rd place. But just as momentum seemed to build, it was abruptly halted by a damaging DNF in the following round, a setback that also affected his confidence and form in Japan. At Phillip Island, he recovered to finish inside the top 10, and in Sepang he showed further progress with a solid 7th place. Portugal, however, brought another heavy blow, as he slumped to 18th, effectively undoing his recent gains. The final race of the season ended with a 10th place finish, a result that ultimately summed up his year. Flashes of promise surrounded by inconsistency. DNFs in Hungary, Indonesia, and San Marino further deepened his struggles, while even his home race at Mugello ended in disappointment. In Czechia, there was one last reminder of his potential as he secured a podium in the sprint race. But once again, he couldn't carry that form into the Grand Prix itself. A fitting reflection of a season defined not by lack of talent, but by an inability to sustain momentum. There was a data spread across which puts Enea Bastianini's 2025 season into sharp perspective. When you look at KTM's riders by average points per Grand Prix, the gap is impossible to ignore. Pedro Acosta leads the group comfortably with 14.04 points per race, showing immediate adaptation and consistency, while Maverick Vinales follows with 12.37, proving that the KTM can be competitive in the right hands. Even Brad Binder and Pol Espargaro, despite their own ups and downs, sit well ahead on 6.81 and 5.40 points, respectively. Bastianini, however, averages just 4.80 points per Grand Prix, the lowest among KTM's main riders, a statistic that brutally summarizes his struggles. This isn't a reflection of raw talent, but of a season constantly interrupted by DNFs, crashes, and an ongoing inability to fully unlock the KTM's aggressive riding style. While others managed to extract pace and points even on difficult weekends, Bastianini's highs were rare and his lows frequent, dragging his average down despite flashes like podiums and strong sprint performances. In pure numbers, this chart confirms what the races suggested all year. Within the same machinery pool, Enea was fighting not the front of the grid, but his own inconsistency, making 2025 less a battle for results and more a battle to rediscover himself. Mid-season, KTM made a decisive move by assigning Andres Madrid, Brad Binder's longtime trusted crew chief, to Enea Bastianini. This wasn't a random reshuffle. It was a clear acknowledgement that the problem went beyond pure performance. The bike had its flaws, but communication, trust, and confidence were equally broken. With Madrid's arrival, Bastianini finally began to find clarity in feedback and direction in setup, and the impact was immediate. Direct Q2 access in 4 Grand Prix, and a noticeable improvement in consistency through the middle phase of the season. The turnaround came too late to salvage the championship standings, but it wasn't meaningless. It proved that when structure and belief returned, so did the foundations of Enea Bastianini's true potential. In the press conference following the change, Enea Bastianini was measured but revealing in his words. He didn't frame it as a miracle fix, but as a necessary reset. He explained that working with Andres Madrid immediately brought more clarity to the weekends, clearer feedback loops, calmer decision-making, and a better understanding of why the bike behaved the way it did. Bastianini admitted that earlier in the season, he often felt lost, chasing setup changes without fully trusting the direction, and that this had hurt both his confidence and results. With Madrid, he felt more listened to and more aligned inside the box, which helped him ride with less doubt especially over one-lap pace. He was honest that the progress came late and couldn't erase the damage already done, but stressed that it gave him something he'd been missing all year, a sense of control again. Not optimism without reason, but belief grounded in understanding. If you want to truly understand Enea Bastianini's 2025 season, everything begins on Saturday mornings, because qualifying quietly became the root of almost every problem he faced. Frequent Q1 exits left him buried on the grid, often starting races between P15 and P22, and with each missed lap, his confidence visibly eroded. MotoGP insiders were blunt behind closed doors. When Enea qualified badly, his weekend was effectively over. Even on days when his race pace was genuinely competitive, poor track position trapped him in traffic, overheated his tires, and forced risky overtakes that either cost time or ended in crashes. In modern MotoGP, where margins are razor-thin and clean air is everything, bad qualifying is a sentence the championship rarely forgives. And yet, sprint races told a different story. In those short, explosive battles, flashes of the old beast returned. A Brno sprint podium, a top 5 in Catalunya, and multiple finishes inside the top 10 showed a rider still capable of aggression and instinct. Sprints masked his weaknesses: less tire management, less dependence on long race rhythm, and more reward for raw attack, the very traits that once made him lethal on a Ducati. But flashes alone are not enough anymore. When Sundays arrived, the magic that once defined Bastianini faded. There were moments, a podium in Barcelona, a strong 5th in Austria, 7th at Kota, reminders of who he used to be. Yet too often, the pattern was cruelly consistent. If he pushed, he crashed. If he rode safely, he lacked pace. Once known as MotoGP's late race predator, the hunter became hesitant, trapped between survival and speed. That contradiction didn't just define individual races, it defined his entire 2025 season. On paper, the numbers painted a worrying picture. On soft rear tires, Enea Bastianini averaged 1.2 seconds per lap slower than Ducati riders, a statistic that shocked many in the paddock and underlined just how far he was from his former benchmark. But statistics don't always capture instinct, and that instinct resurfaced in one defining moment of his season. During his podium finish, Bastianini delivered a reminder of why he was once feared, pulling off a decisive overtake on Pedro Acosta, who was arguably KTM's standout rider of 2025. Using the slipstream on the straight, where KTM's top speed finally matched Ducati's, Enea made a bold, high-risk move. Knowing KTM's braking remained its weakest point, he went against the conventional racing line, braking later and harder into Turn 1. That forced Acosta to brake earlier to protect his line, while Bastianini, despite the unconventional approach, carried the bike back onto the racing line and positioned himself perfectly on the inside of Turn 2. That sequence gave him the decisive advantage and sealed the pass. It was intelligent, aggressive, and instinctive, the kind of calculated brutality that defined the beast in 2022 and again in 2024. For a brief but powerful moment in 2025, that rider returned, reminding everyone that the problem was never a lack of talent, but the challenge of unlocking it consistently. What played out in 2025 was not simply a technical crisis. It was a slow, psychological unraveling. Inside the paddock, the talk wasn't about lap times anymore, but about doubt. Enea Bastianini, once one of the most instinctive riders on the grid, began questioning everything that had previously come naturally to him. His braking, once late and fearless, became a point of hesitation. The front end, once trusted without thought, no longer spoke to him with the same clarity. Each missed qualifying lap fed the uncertainty, and every setup change only deepened the confusion. Instead of riding, he began thinking. Instead of attacking, he began calculating. One insider summed it up brutally. He stopped riding instinctively. He started riding cautiously. And in MotoGP, caution is poison. At this level, confidence isn't just an advantage. It's a requirement. The moment belief fractures, speed disappears. For much of 2025, Bastianini wasn't fighting the field ahead of him. He was fighting the voice in his own head. The Valencia test result was a quiet but devastating conclusion to Enea Bastianini's season. While Pedro Acosta placed 5th, Maverick Vinales 6th, and Brad Binder 9th, all showing clear direction and confidence in the KTM package, Bastianini languished down in 17th, nearly a full second adrift. The gap itself was alarming, but what truly sent shockwaves through the paddock was what it represented. This wasn't a bad lap or a missed setup window. It was a lack of direction. Where other KTM riders were refining details, Bastianini was still searching for fundamentals, braking reference points, front-end trust, and a riding style that didn't feel forced. Insiders admitted the uncomfortable truth. Even after a full season, KTM still didn't fully understand what Enea needed from the bike to unlock his potential. His struggles weren't rooted in effort or talent, but in misalignment between rider feedback, engineering interpretation, and the machine's inherent characteristics. Valencia exposed that gap brutally. It showed that while others were already building toward the future, Bastianini was still trying to understand the present, making the result less about speed and more about uncertainty heading into what would become a critical turning point in his career. So how should Enea Bastianini's 2025 really be judged? It wasn't a failure in the traditional sense. The talent never disappeared, and the flashes of brilliance were still there. But it certainly wasn't a success either, especially for a rider coming off a 4th-place championship finish just a year earlier. Instead, 2025 stands as a warning season. Ending the year somewhere between 14th and 18th in the standings, Bastianini became one of the biggest disappointments on the grid, not because of a lack of effort, but because potential and results never aligned. He showed, in moments, that he could still be exceptional, a podium here, a sprint performance there, yet across an entire season, he never fully connected with the KTM package. The key lesson is clear and uncomfortable. Elite riders don't lose talent overnight. What they lose is alignment between bike, team, confidence, and instinct. And until that alignment returns, even the best riders in the world can